After the march, King and the violence that broke out, King was pretty depressed.
Oh
Wasn't
my God, yes, yes. I went over to the hotel. They just picked him up bodily and put him in a car and took him to the hotel, and he was lying in the bed when I got there, in his clothes, just laying on top of the bed. He said, "Billy, what do you think happened?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "You know, we've got to have a peaceful march in Memphis, or we can't go to Washington." I said, "Yeah, I know." He stayed around the next day and had a press conference in Memphis, and they kept asking him. He said, "Oh, no, we can have a peaceful march in Memphis." And then he went on to Atlanta, and they were telling me how depressed he was in Atlanta. He called all the staff in and said, "We're going, and you guys go in and prepare Memphis for this march we are going to have." There'd already been an injunction against having it. He said, "I don't care about the injunction. You go to Memphis and prepare the people." Because we thought at that point it was, just a spontaneous thing. And that's why so much of the staff was in Memphis on April 4th. He sent them in after that march breaking up.
And he came in. Did he come in April 3rd?
April 3rd, yes.
Tell me about the sequence of that day. What happened on
April 4th.
April 3rd?
3rd. Mm-hmm. Okay. He flew back into Memphis April 3rd in preparation for the march. The lawyers were going to court every day trying to get the injunction lifted. But he flew in and had a press conference that the march, we're going to march. And they kept saying, "Stop talking about you going to march anyway. We got to go to court." The judge, he has ears outside the court. That night of the night of that speech the speech almost didn't happen because there were tornado warnings. He spent April 3rd making meetings at the motel in preparation for the meeting that night. But after, there were tornado warnings, raining profusely, thunder and lightning and wind, and he thought there wouldn't be many people at the temple. So he sent several of us over to the temple to have the meeting. He said, "You guys go over and have the meeting." Abernathy, Jesse Jackson, Andy Young, myself. And when we got there, the place was nearly full, in spite of the weather. It was almost full. We walked in, and the people started clapping. And Abernathy said, "These people ain't clapping for us. They think Martin's coming in behind us." And they did. So he went to the phone and called Martin and said, "Man, you should get over here. The people have come in the weather to hear you, and I ain't making no speech tonight." And Martin said, "If you think I need to come, I'll come." We almost missed that last speech. If he had not made that phone call, there would have been no mountaintop speech in Memphis. And that night, while waiting, he was seated waiting to be introduced. The shutters in the back of the church were banging because of the wind. And every time they would bang, he would do that. They would say bang, and he would do that. And I noticed him doing that, so I told the custodian, "Turn the fans on so when it blows the shutters out, they won't bang." And that night, Abernathy introduced him fully for 20 minutes. And nobody said a word. Generally, we know in our tradition how to get the introducer out of the way. "Amen, brother. Amen. Amen, brother." Nobody said a word. Not one word. And Ralph introduced him for 20 minutes. So when Martin got up, he teased. He said, "I thought Dr. Abernathy wasn't going to make a speech tonight." And everybody laughed. He talked about death more than I'd heard him talk about it in a long time. Talked about the plane that he came over in was under guard all night in Atlanta because he was going to ride on it. Then he tells the story about the demented black woman who stabbed him. He was autographing books in Harlem, and she said, "Are you Martin Luther King Jr.?" And she reached over the table and plunged that letter opening to him. He said, "I got all kind of greetings from everywhere." He said, "I got greetings from kings and queens and everybody." He said, "But the most telling came from a teenage girl who said, 'Dear Dr. King, I read about your misfortune and I'm so sorry.' The New York Times said the blade of the letter opener was so close to your aorta that if you had just sneezed, you would have drowned in your own blood. And she put at the bottom, I am so glad you didn't sneeze. And he picked up on that and did a whole litany. And I'm glad I didn't sneeze. If I'd sneezed, I would have missed the Selma to Montgomery March. If I sneezed, I would have missed the Voting Rights Act. If I sneezed, I would have missed the young people sitting in all over the South for their rights. If I sneezed, I would have missed the chance to tell America and the world about a dream I had one August day. And he just went on about what he'd missed if he had sneezed. By that time, we were on our feet. We were crying. We didn't know why we were crying. And he said, you will get to the promised land. I may not get there with you, but you will get to the promised land because God has allowed me to go up on the mountain and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. And I am so certain, Renee, he knew he wouldn't get there. But can you imagine what we would have felt had he said straight up to us, I won't get there with you, but you'll go. So he softened it for us and said, I may not get there with you, but you'll get there.
And but your feeling was that he actually had a strong premonition.
Oh, Lord, yes. And he preached himself through the fear of death. He got it out of him. He said, all right, here it is. It's here. You going on to the mountaintop. This is as far as I'm supposed to go.
Did he have any notes or anything?
No.
Or this came just straight from the heart?
Yes. Yes.